I am Mudita, and welcome back to Satisfactory. In the last video, I built two new factories. One is manufacturing all the new electronics I now have available. The other is making the second space elevator part for this phase, the modular engines. I only have the adaptive control units left to finish phase 3. And I have everything for them except for those pesky heavy modular frames. With the use of some alternate recipes, these daunting parts become much more manageable. With the infrastructure I have set up already, this should be a fairly easy factory to make, and we'll be moving on to phase 4 in no time. For today's factory, the whole thing is taking place right here in the Rocky Desert, and there's a couple reasons for it. If we pull up the codex and find the adaptive control unit, which is the last of the space elevator parts, which I still need to place the space elevator again, but we'll get to that eventually. I know that I need 100 of these. Computers I just automated so I can put those on a train. Heavy modular frames is what I'm going to build today. Circuit boards I don't have any laying around because they're just an intermediate part, so I don't feel like building a whole lot of extra just to ship out. I'd rather just build them when I need them, kind of like screws or stators. And I've got two options to make the circuit boards. I'll either need to bring in plastic or silica. And that's because the copper sheets are actually being made right here. So I'll be able to siphon off whatever amount I need fairly easily. And then the last part is the automated wiring, which is being made right here. First things first, we need to take care of the heavy modular frames. So let's go ahead and take a look at the plan for that. I know this looks like a lot, but I promise heavy modular frames really aren't too bad. It's quite a few different recipes. But if you pick the right alternates, you can boil this down to only needing iron ore and some limestone. I'm going to be making 3 heavy modular frames per minute, and that's going to be enough for my dimensional depot, and I'm going to split one off for the adaptive control unit. I'm only going to be making one of those a minute. Later on down the road, we'll have to scale things up, and we'll build quite a few more, but for now, this will be plenty. In total, I need 576 iron ore. I can't get all of that out of one node because of my belt speed limitation right now, so I need to use 2 nodes no matter what. The breakdown of the iron ore is that 384, so the large majority of it needs to go to steel pipes. The advantage of the iron pipe recipe is that I don't need to include coal at all, but it does use quite a bit more iron. But I'm okay with that, there's plenty of iron in the world. Instead of grouping up all 576 and trying to do a complicated load balance, I'm going to set one of the miners just for 384, and it's going to supply the amount that I need just for the iron pipes. Then the other 192 will get broken up between the iron plates, screws, and rods. And just by doing that, it makes the load balancing quite a bit easier. Along with the 576 iron ore, I just need 216 limestone. I already have a pretty good idea of where this factory is going to go. But because I finally finished the electronics factory and I have plenty of those in my dimensional depot, let's visit the man. So let's just go ahead and go through and see what we can unlock. Next time I'm at the hub, I'll make sure that I save 10 of the DNA capsules instead of sinking them all, and then I can finally unlock this. I honestly don't need this, it's really just to complete the whole section. Definitely going to need to do some more exploring to get these last unlocks for the dimensional depots. Terrific, I even have everything on hand.
Power pole Mark III unlocked. It has significantly more power connections compared to the previous models.
That it does. I don't know why it took me so long to realize that you basically just add 3 connections each time. It goes from 4 to 7 to 10. I don't know why it didn't dawn on me sooner. I'm going to continue to ignore the power switches, and I'll go into more detail about that in the next phase. Bullet guidance systems? Well, might as well unlock that one. Eventually we'll get to make the synthetic power shards, but still a ways off on those. And the quartz tree. This is the one that I really wanted to do. Let's go ahead and just add both of these to the to-do list. Thankfully, I have yet to create a single heavy modular frame in this playthrough. All of these have been from the hard drive crash sites. I know there's some really cool things you can do with the Pulse Obelisk. I'm just horrible at timing it right. Alright, and the radar technology. I've been wanting to unlock these for quite a while, but they're pretty expensive as far as the heavy modular frames go for the unlock. And as you can see, they cost 20 for each one to build. So until you have all the parts automated, they're a little expensive to build. Thankfully, you don't need a ton. They have a pretty good range. But I love having these. And let's just double check. Yeah, everything else is the next phase or later, I think. I don't want to just place this on the ground. That's no fun. I guess I could find a place to put it on top of one of my factories, but I kind of like this platform right here. So I went ahead and made a second version. And because the radar towers need a bunch of quartz, I just made this one purple. And I did try to put one of these in the blueprint because it would be nice if I could just place it all at once. But yeah, that doesn't come anywhere close to fitting inside of a blueprinter. So we're just gonna have to set it down afterwards. So now I can just grab my new blueprint here, put it in blueprint mode, and I'm just gonna set it right next to it because it needs power and they'll kind of match being right next to each other. And now I can just place a couple of these extensions down. Let's lock the radar tower in place and make sure it's nice and centered. Yep, looks good. And yeah, I'll get the ladder here in the front. We can just connect it to this tower. Sure, we'll make the radar towers purple, why not? Now I just need to extend this and chop down a couple trees. And cacti. Aw, it's beautiful. But the best part is now, when we take a look at the map, now I get to see all the nodes. And the radar tower doesn't do all of this. Thank you so much for the comment suggesting this one. I'd never heard of the Cartograph mod before. It doesn't really change the game in any way, but if you're familiar with the Satisfactory Calculator's interactive map, where you can see all of your buildings, the rail lines, all that sort of a thing, it's basically that on the in-game map, which is just really cool and super helpful, because it was something that I always wanted to show off more where everything was, but having to upload the save file and take screenshots all the time, it was just easy to forget. So having it live in-game, just so cool. I love it. So now we can see all of my train lines, we can see where my factories are. So here's the power plant, here's the electronics factory, here's my little quartz factory. I think this is a really nice extra visual aid. And now I'm just gonna have to try to make sure that I don't let the map get too crowded. Because I'm sure in not too long, I'm gonna need to start hiding either train stations, or most likely I'll need to just turn off the nodes every once in a while. And that'll probably make it a little bit easier to see what's going on. But let's take a look at the rocky desert and let's go ahead and turn those nodes back on, because that is the whole reason I built the radar tower. Because yes, just like in the very beginning of the game, if you hold down V, I could ping for any of these resources. However, being able to just have them all up on the map and be able to just hover over and see what purity they are is just so nice. Alright, so enough getting sidetracked. What I need today is 384 iron for the iron pipes, so that needs to be a pure node. The 192 I could get out of a normal, or 2 impures, or a pure. And then I need 216 limestone. So I need at least a normal node for that. So right here, I've got 2 pure iron nodes and a pure limestone. And since this is the factory making my versatile framework, it just makes sense to build this thing right here. I've got the train station and I'll be able to bring in the extra parts for the adaptive control unit. Before any of you give me too much credit, I did not actually plan this. It just worked out this well that this is just like the perfect spot to build this factory. I wish I could say I actually planned that out, but I just got lucky. And I just love this location because we've got the 2 iron nodes, so I'm just going to build the factory on top of these. And then I've got this really cool giant tree to work around. So the goal is to not accidentally delete it and then build the factory around it so it's not going to clip through it or anything. And then I've got all these rocks, and so I can actually just skip out on building an entire wall. It even saves me on material. And the limestone node is just right there, so it just needs 1 belt to bring it over. And I think I'm going to go ahead and start with that. There we go. Nice, simple, and clean. Got our limestone miner in. I only need 216, so this is at 90%. I think the theme for this one is going to be Swatch 2. So I'm just going to go ahead and make this the standard for most things. And I think I'm just going to start with concrete, and then later on, if I decide I want to use a different material, I'll just go through and change that. So I just want to lay out enough foundations to kind of get an idea of where I can build this. So I am going to build it just straight into the rock here. I hear something. Not a Mercer sphere. Oh, it's the one summer sloop that's still in this area. Oh, and it's pretty close. So, okay. So it's, yeah, directly below me. I don't think that's the same main cave. That's farther back. So I think there's another entrance somewhere over here, but I am pretty positive this cave has a few spiders. I'm just going to go ahead and spare you all from those horrors. Eventually we'll stop hearing that sound. So what I want to do is basically just kind of find an area where I'm not going to clip into the tree when I go up. So for these ones right here, I don't want. This is where fly does kind of come in handy. Alright, so it's probably going to be something more like that. I'll probably stick out a little bit farther. This bottom floor is just going to have the miners. So after that, I'm going to go ahead and bring this up. Alright, so we got plenty of space, and then above that, we'll do the smelters. I think there should be a big enough footprint for at least these first two floors. This bottom one is just going to have the miners. I need a total of 9 smelters, and I just don't want to try to fit them down there. I'm okay with going vertical, so we'll do the smelters up here. Now once we get 1 or 2 more floors up, I can actually extend this out over the tree. That won't bother me. I just don't want to clip into the tree. I'm going to keep the 2 processes separate. For just the steel pipes, I'm going to need 6 smelters, and then for everything else, those are going to use 3. So let's go ahead and just get started. So let's go ahead and place this first smelter right here. Now we're going to have these ones face this way. And just to make all of the belt work easy, I'm going to give them all their own foundation. And now I still have 3 free, and it gives me an extra 1 on the end. Perfect. The other ones, however, I am going to spin completely the other direction. These ones, I want to give lots of space for the load balancing out here. So I'll follow the same rule of thumb there. They'll each get their own foundation. Just makes the belt work a little easier. Let's go ahead and set the recipes. So for the iron pipes, 384 across 6 machines, 64 for each one. And this is where it's going to get real weird. For everything else that's basically going to make the modular frames, I need 192, and I'm going to use 3 machines. And it's 64 for each one. From the smelters, we basically have these going into 4 different things altogether. However, all of these are actually just feeding 2 constructors. So I think what I'm going to do is just add a little bit more space up here. Don't need a full one. We'll just go up 6 meters. So 1 full 4-meter foundation and then a 2-meter. Really, I think I could give myself just a little bit more space. Yeah, it only sticks out a little bit. So let's just do a half foundation for this one. There we go. So now what I can do is place a merger in front of the center of each of these 3. Except for all of these need to be marked 2. Of course, I always remember it after I've placed them all. Since each one is putting out 64. Then we'll just place the constructors right in front of the mergers. These are going to do iron pipe. 96 in total. 48 for each one. Which means each one is going to require 192. Which is exactly how much I have on each one of these. So then I just need to mark 3 from here to here, and oh, I would really like them to be close enough. So I may change the spacing there so that I don't need a belt, but that's how those are going to work. And then for these, I'm going to go ahead and group them all up together. So same thing, mark 2 from each one, since each one is putting out 64. So now I've got 192 to deal with. And for this, I need 108 will go to iron plates, 48 iron rods, and 36 to cast screws. Well, it just so happens that all of these numbers are divisible by 12. So 192 divided by 12 is 16. So I can reduce all of this into much more manageable numbers if I look at it as splitting up 16 into 9, 4, and 3. And so that's what this diagram is going to do. Alright, just like in the past, I'm just going to follow my diagram to get all of my splitters and mergers placed, and then we'll multiply all of the numbers by the correct amount to get the right belt speeds. So I just need 4 splitters in a row. And then I just have 2 mergers on either side of the last one. Just a little bit of belt work. So I just multiply all of these numbers by 12. So instead of 16, I've got 192. And then out of this splitter, we'll have 96 and 96. And then this one has 48. And this right here is 48, which is exactly what I need for my iron rods. With this 48, we split it in half. So we've got 24 going into here, 24 into there. And then we just split it in half one more time. So 12 and 12. In total, we've got 36 here, 108 here. And that right there is like half of the load balancing for the whole video. Most of the rest of this is going to be really straightforward. Let me tidy things up a little bit here. I'll add another floor, and then we'll place the rest of the machines for the heavy modular frame part. I went ahead and added signs because, you know what, I pretty much never regret adding more signs to tell me where things are and how much it is. You can always delete them in the future. So for this, the iron is going to come up in between these 2 smelters, get split in half, and then it just gets split 3 ways twice. And now we're up to the 3rd floor. So if we take a look at the spreadsheet, I am going to cram the iron plates, cast screws, iron rods, reinforced iron plates, modular frames, encased industrial pipes, and the heavy encased frame recipes all in this area. Because with our wonderful friends, the power shards, we can reduce this to very few machines. So I do think I need to get pretty close to the rock here, but all I need is 6 constructors. So I'll probably have to add on a bit more just so I can actually walk around, but that's okay. I just want to get all the machines, belts, all that stuff in, and then I'll focus on the aesthetics and building the walkways. I want to make sure that this is a nice, clean, and smooth working factory first. Alright, as far as what constructors are doing what, that I will figure out in a second. I just know that I need a pair for the screws, the plates, and the rods. Next, I need some assemblers. Alright, so for all of the assemblers, I need a couple. For the first one, I know I'm going to put it somewhere over here. Because for this one, I'm going to be using the encased industrial pipe recipe. So steel pipes and then concrete. Which I'm just now remembering that I haven't dealt with concrete quite yet. It's just a minor detail. I'll figure that out eventually. Steel pipes, however, those are coming from right below here. This one, I need 10, so it's going to be one machine completely overclocked. For the other assemblers, they're making modular frames and the reinforced iron plates. I only need 1 for reinforced iron plates, but I need 2 for the modular frames. So my thinking is manufacturer is going to end up going over here in this corner. So we can kind of work backwards to figure out what order we should place everything in. This is like a really weird backwards puzzle. Alright, so just to kind of temporarily get the spacing right, if I were to place these, just say, yeah, if I try to line up that one with that, do that one there. Because if these are the modular frames, and in total I need 8, so each one of these will do 4. Do a merger into there, and now we can kind of get a better spot for the manufacturer. What we'll do is we'll get these to go straight into here. So there's the modular frames. Here's the encased industrial beams. It would help if I actually had the recipe. Let's go ahead and pick this one. Just need 1 power shard, overclock this to 3, and all of a sudden we get nice round numbers. So that's the modular frames, the encased industrial beams, the steel pipes are coming from right down below, and then, oh look, concrete. Yeah, we'll figure that out eventually. Alright, so let's work backwards from here. So these are the modular frames, which means I need the reinforced iron plates, which are coming from the other assembler I still need to place, and then the iron rods. So let's go ahead and just make these the iron rods. And I need 24, so each one of these needs to be overclocked to 24. And in total that means I need 48 ingots, so the math checks out. That means these 4 are the cast screws and the iron plates. And so we can go ahead and line this up with that one, and we'll place it right in the center. We're just going to grab a merger for all of this. Oh, and I'm out of power shards. Well, good thing I have a whole bunch of them now. I need 72 iron plates in total, so 36 for each one. And then for the cast screws, 72 for each one. So that means I should probably change some belt speeds here. There we go. Mark 2s and Mark 3s. And then this one needs to be a Mark 2. Now I just need the reinforced iron plates to come over to here. These normally come out just right here on the edge of the foundation. So yeah, let's go ahead and place this here. And then we're going to nudge it up 2 meters. And now I'm going to create old stubby here. And because these just work so much better when you have the belt there, go ahead and place stubby lifts, delete those belts, and just replace them. And now on this side, we're just going to do the same thing. And now I can connect this lift to that splitter. It's like a glove. And look at that, there's still plenty of space up here. So there is a little bit of load balancing I need to do with the steel pipes. And now I know which direction what amount needs to go. I'm making 96 in total. 60 are going to the encased industrial beams, 36 are going to the heavy modular frames. Well, if each one are putting out 48, all I need to do is split one of these in quarters. So we'll just do 2 splitters here, 1 merger here, and then we'll just do 1 more merger over here. Just get these lined up. There we go. All right, so here's 48. And then 48, we'll split that in half. So here's 24 and there's 24. There's 12. So right here is 36. Here's 12, making this one 60. And just like that, the load balancing for the pipes is done. There's still the minor stuff of putting these splitters in and those belts and then getting these amounts to the right spot. But the major piece that I need for heavy modular frames is the concrete. Now, thankfully, I only need 2 constructors, so really, I could find all sorts of places I could squeeze this in. But I have another idea. Before I show you what I've done, here's my reasoning for it. I could have easily put those 2 constructors right here. There's plenty of space, even with doing the belt work of getting these belts up to where they need to go. I didn't need this area at all. However, after I make that concrete, I need to do a little bit of load balancing. I'll be making 72, and I need to split that 50 and 22. And this just isn't enough space to do both the constructors and the load balancing. So I am going to do that load balancing right here. But for the concrete, I decided to make this little blueprint. It takes up exactly a 2x2 area. It has 2 constructors and then just the splitter and the merger. And the reason I'm using the frame walls is because the constructor has those little arms that stick out, and because they move up and down and side to side, I'm hoping that there's minimal clipping with the frame walls. But if I have to, I'll just delete the bottom ones. These are both overclocked to 240%, so each one outputs 36, and that's how I'm getting my 72. I was already going to need the limestone belt to go this way. Might as well just throw this in the middle, turn it into concrete, and now that part's out of the way. It's going to come along here, plug into the factory, and then once it gets up to here, this is where I'm going to do the load balancing. And here's our diagram. So if I divide all the numbers by 2, I get 36 into 25 and 11. And that's just a little bit easier to work with. And I think if we start right about here, we should have plenty of space. Let's go with the splitter here. And then we're going to go to the left, and we're going to go 1, 2, 3 splitters. And then from here, we can do some mergers on either side. So this one will line up with both the front and the side one. This one, I'll go ahead and give it a little bit more space just so it lines up right here. And then I just need 1 merger there and then 1 merger behind it. And now just a little bit of belt work. So instead of 36, it's actually going to be 72 that plugs into here. And then we split that 3 ways. So 24, 24, 24. So now this is 48. It just needs 2 more for that 50. So to get that, we're going to take this 24, split it in half. So here's 12 and here's 12. 6 and 6. So this will be 9. And then with this 6, we split it all 3 ways. Except for this merger needed to actually be turned sideways. There we go. So 9, I said 9. That is 18, not 9. All right, so this is 6 grand into here. So that means 2, 2, and nope, 2. There we go. So here's our 50, and here's my 22. So now I just need to plug those up into that assembler and the manufacturer. My original plan was to have the heavy modular frames its own factory, and then the adaptive control units would be nearby, but it would be separate. But once I was looking at all the parts, it just kind of makes sense to just build it right on top of here, I think. So all I'm going to need is one more floor, one assembler, and one manufacturer. So it just makes sense to just add one more floor, add those 2 machines, and then that's it. And then we can get both parts turned on all at once. And I think that's more fun. So let me go ahead and add another floor, and we'll get the last 2 machines placed. We are up to the 4th floor. Let's go ahead and take a look at the plan for this floor. The 5 automated wiring are going to be coming from right next door. I'll be making the circuit boards here using just the default recipe. And to make 5, I only need 10 copper sheets and 20 plastic. So this is going to be another train that just does not need to run very often. The 1 heavy modular frame is coming from the floor below, and then also 2 computers. So as far as the train is concerned, it's only going to be carrying the plastic and the computers. So it certainly won't need to run very often. But in total, I'm going to have 3 things coming from this train station. This is where the copper sheets are already being load balanced, so this is where the copper sheets are going to be coming from as well, even though they won't be on the train. And so for that, I went ahead and added the lifts because I wanted to figure out where exactly they were going to fit in. And I think I'm actually going to have to raise these up a little bit because if I try to draw these out to the train station, it flips through the ground. So chances are we nudge it up like 2 meters. That's probably really where they're going to go, just so they can clear all the ground there. But that's how those items will be getting into the factory. And then if we just follow these all the way up, here we are at the top floor. Now my first thought was that I'm going to be able to make this floor just quite a bit smaller, because all I need is 1 assembler doing the circuit boards, and I only need 5 of them, and then a manufacturer. And this is more or less how it's going to get laid out, because then I can pretty easily do something like this. Well, that'll be straight. And then this one right here is actually a lift coming from the very bottom, because I kind of wanted to figure out where the versatile framework we're going to plug in. And since they're coming from right here, probably going to add a wall hole somewhere right around there. And then these are going to come along here and plug into the factory there. So then they will come up, and then those can plug straight into there. And then I just need my heavy modular frames. They'll come up through another floor hole, and then they'll plug into that. And that right there will make my 1 adaptive control unit a minute. Now that is actually how this whole part is going to go. But what I am going to change is I'm actually going to add on a little bit more. Because even though that is the entirety of the factory right now, I have played the game once or twice, and so I do know what's coming up ahead. And I think I could very easily add 1 machine on here and add another important part in the next phase. Things are a little bit more straightened up, so I decided to change the assembler and put it in this direction, and I think everything just kind of flows a little bit nicer this way. The manufacturer is going to put out 1 a minute. It's going to go here. That's the smart splitter, so once this container does fill up, it'll just start going into the sink. I'll probably do the same thing I've done in the past and just fill up most of this container with concrete. I only need 2 stacks of this part to complete the phase. And even though that would be a lot of stacks of concrete to pull out of my dimensional depot, my concrete factory is just right over there. So I can just make a quick run over there and grab as many stacks as I need. All that does is let them start sinking sooner. Other than that, it really makes no difference. For the heavy modular frames, I'm making 3 a minute, and so they go into a splitter. 2 of them are getting grouped together. 1 of them is just going up here to go into that manufacturer. I'll probably do my storage up here as well, because honestly, it really doesn't matter where you put it if you're just relying on the dimensional depot. Now, the one thing that's missing that I've had in all of my factories is the elevator. In most of them, I've tried to put them inside the factory. For this one, I really just wanted to focus on the machines and get things laid out in just a nice, smooth way that made sense. Might make the decorating portion a little bit more interesting, but hey, small price to pay. Before I get to that decorating though, I want to go ahead and set up my train. One of the reasons I decided to add this on top of the heavy modular frame factory, because of everything is just so close to here, I only need the train for 2 items, which means I can use one of these little tiny train stations that I built. Normally the way I like to do the trains is set up the load balancing on the unload side, so right here where we're at. And that way when I get the train turned on, it'll just start running and nothing will back up. And it'll just start syncing, and then I'll start getting accurate numbers on the throughput, making sure my load balancing is good. I just like to have it running from the get-go. With this one, I'm not quite sure which one I want to go where. But with the amounts that we're dealing with on this one, I just have so much time to figure everything out. So let me show you. This train is going to be carrying plastic and computers. The plastic are the more full ones. 20 plastic out of a stack of 200 is 0.1. Whereas I need 2 computers out of a stack of 50, 0.04. So plastic is the one that's going to fill up first. The freight car has 32 slots times 200 plastic divided by the whopping 20 per minute. I have 320 minutes to complete a round trip, which is 5 hours and 20 minutes. So I don't think anything is going to back up on this side, and I am going to be just okay. I am going to make sure that I switch both of these to unload, just so it does start unloading when I do get my trains going. I'm going to need a locomotive and 2 freight cars. On my way over here, I stopped at a bunch of the different train stations and added a little asterisk so I could better signify which ones are my train stations versus all of the rest of them. So I know that there's no freight platforms at these ones. These are the ones that I can set my train to go to. But it also means I can send this one over there and I'm not going to block any traffic. So for now, let's go ahead and just set this. Now let's go ahead and take a look at that train station. Back at the West Coast Oil. So this is where all of my plastic and rubber in the world are coming from. And I've still got plenty. The numbers are still looking good. And for right now, I'm sinking most of it. 383 of the rubber is being sunk right now. And all 375 of the plastic. Thankfully, I only need 20. Now, I do prefer the ratio splits as opposed to doing the smart splitters, and a lot of the time it just comes down to how full the belt is. I don't know if there's an exact number, and honestly, I think it really depends on more of how much of it comes in bursts. So is it evenly distributed, or are you getting all of them in the first like 40 seconds and then nothing for 20 seconds? Not really how they work, but you kind of get the picture. 20 divided by 375 is just not going to be a fun number, because there's not a whole lot I can do besides just divide by 5. So I'm looking at 4/75ths, which sure, I guess that's not the most ridiculous ratio split I've done, but it would be really easy just to do some smart splitters. So what I can do is just kind of place this here for now, and then I'll delete the belts and actually plug them in where they're supposed to go. But it's going to do a smart splitter. And there's a good chance with this amount, I don't need to do this, but I'm going to. So I am going to give it plenty of space, and the reason is I'm going to use a Mark 1 belt here, and the rest of this is going to be Mark 2. Now the reason is as we can see, there's quite a few gaps on the belt. 375 on a 480 belt is a little over 78% full. So more than 20% of it is empty. Now, the Smart Splitter does have an internal buffer, and so when those gaps do show up, it should be able to continuously supply this Mark 1 belt. Because I'm going to have that one as the primary, and then straight ahead is going to be for overflow. And so it should be able to keep this one completely full. But every once in a while, there might be too many gaps, and it might deplete whatever internal buffer it has, and then you get one less, and then all of a sudden I have 59 or 58 per minute on there instead of the 60. And then that affects the load balancing thereafter, because then I'm only going to be sending something like 19 a minute to the factory instead of the 20. Is it going to make a big difference? No, not at all. But I love seeing 100% efficiency way more than I like seeing 99. And so by doing this, having a faster speed belt, this basically can grab the items more quickly out of the splitter, but then it's still going to be limited down to this Mark 1. So ultimately, there's still only going to be 60 per minute going into the splitter, but this is just an easy way to ensure that this is a full belt. And then from here, we can just add 2 more mergers. We're going to add a merger there, and then we're going to add 1 more lined up with both of these. So it'll be 60 into here, and then we'll do 20 and 40 are going to get sent back. The other 20 are going to the train station. So after learning my hard lessons with trains in the last episode, I've now realized that some of these train stations are just going to be wasteful and a little bit too big. But thankfully, I've got plenty of space to add more train stations, which is kind of the solution to the way I'm building my train network. So I can probably delete these 2 and just replace them with the empty platforms, but I can come back and do that anytime. For a location like this, where my only 2 exports are going to be rubber and plastic, I can basically have at most 2 trains go here, 1 to pick up rubber and 1 to pick up plastic. It's not 100% true. There are definitely ways I could get around it and do other things, but I think the most practical solution is to just go this route where I just have 1 that does rubber and then 1 that'll pick up plastic. But I need to make sure that I have both of the trains set up correctly. So currently the modular engine train is coming here and picking up rubber. So what I want to do is come to the train station, go over to the timetable, and this is why naming your trains can really help you out. Because trust me, I've had a playthrough where I had just like 40 trains and they were all just named train. It's kind of a pain. I did not do that on purpose. So we go to the modular engine train, and now we can edit the timetable. So when it comes here to plastic and rubber 1, we're going to edit this cogwheel, and I'm going to change it so that it only loads rubber. Now if we save this and save changes, now when I send plastic into this freight platform, it's never going to pick it up because it is not rubber. And so now I can add this one, and when I set up this train, I'm going to make sure that I set it to only pick up plastic. And then there shouldn't be any issues. I've used this system a few times and it actually is really reliable. So now I just need to get the 20 sent over to here, and this train station is done. Now it's time to go back to the electronics factory. So I will see you over there. This time I remembered halfway through. I added my to-do list. As you can see, I've already marked off plastic. So next one, computers. I realize this may seem silly to do, but the reason I'm doing this is so that I know the order of the freight cars. With 2, it's not too hard to keep track of, but whenever you have a train that has 3 or 4, it can definitely help if you just have it written down somewhere which ones are going in which order. Or else then you send the wrong thing to the wrong place, and machines just don't tend to work when you do that. Inside the factory on the train level, I've already added my 3rd train station. So here's my electronics 2. Since the first freight car is going to be doing the plastic, I'm going to have the second one be doing computers. Like I've said in the past, I am pretty sure with dealing with such low numbers, I could have just used 1 freight platform to pick up everything and then just used a smart splitter on the unload side, and I could probably get it to work like that. And somewhere down the road, I will probably try it just because I'm curious. But for whatever reason, I just like to keep them separate, even though I know, especially in this situation, I really don't need to. And then I'm just going to have the 2 plug into here. So for that, they're just going to get plugged in right under here. So hopefully I can just have this just come down right here and just kind of add to all of the lifts. This one will just be going the opposite direction. Let's go ahead and go up to that top floor. Here we have the computers. So just 1 machine is cranking out 8 a minute. This is going to be really easy. So what I can do is if I want the second one to end up in the same kind of spot, let's do that and that. And then we just need a merger on this side. There we go. All right, so let's delete the belt. So there's 8 going into there. So that's 4, and then that's 4. That's 2. And here's the other 2. And the beauty of being right over here is we can obviously need to reconnect that. But I can pretty much just send this wherever I want because right under here is my logistics floor. So now I can get this to come right over here. And I can get it to plug in just right next to my quartz. So I just need a couple belts and lifts and I can get that plugged into the train. I'll see you back at the new factory. Here we are back at the factory, and the bean, it just really wants to go for a train ride. I decided to go ahead and let this one wait for another 1200 seconds as well, because it really just doesn't need to run that often. Sorry Bean, next ride isn't for a few more minutes. I jumped on the train and let it complete one full trip, and so now it has a whopping 10 computers and 500 plastic, but I've got plenty of time before this actually fills up. So now I've got to figure out my unloading, so that's going to go there. You ever have a hard time lining up where you need to put the floor holes? That's usually what I do, is just connect it to where it's going to go. If you get it lined up like right even with the floor, and then I just use my hotkey to switch to the floor hole, it's in the exact spot I need to place it. So now let's go ahead and come up here into the logistics area. I could use the bigger containers, but honestly, I just don't think I need to, because I'm just not dealing with a lot. So I think the small one is going to be fine. And because we've got them, let's go ahead and use the new priority merger. So for this, I just want to make sure that it unloads everything. So I'm going to go ahead and use faster belts and lifts than I need. But it'll be fine, because with the priority merger, I can make sure that the side pieces are the ones that get prioritized, because that's what's going to complete the loop, and I need to make sure that those don't get stopped up. So this first one is plastic. And all we need is 60 into a splitter, and then we just send 20 and 40 back, and there's my load balancing. Gotta love doing 20, because now we're gonna look at the computers. I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing with the priority merger. And here's the little diagram of what we've got going on here. I swear this looks way crazier than it is. So we're gonna start with a splitter. And then we've got a merger, and we're going to put that right to the side. So right off the bat, we've got 60, because that's our slowest speed belt. We basically need to split this down into 1/30th, and that will be our 2 per minute. So if we split 60 3 ways, we've got 20 on each. So right off the bat, there's 40. And now we just need to take 20 down to 2. So let's go ahead and just lay out all the rest of the splitters. So it's going to go 2 splitters, followed by a merger, and then another splitter, and then from there we're going to go with a splitter above it, because we're running out of space. And then another merger, and we can turn this one sideways because I want it to go that way. And then last but not least, we need one more merger, and that is going to line up right in front of this splitter. Alright, so we've got 20 into here. From there we've got 10, and then 10, 5, and then 5. So we're going to take 5, and we're going to do a 5-way split. So ultimately, this is going to end up being 6. And then so when we split that in half, that's going to be 3 and 3. Use all 3 of these outputs, and we've got 1. And that takes us from the 5 to the 6. And then we've got 1 and 1. And here is my 2. Now with this, we had 10, 5, and 3. So here is the 18. So that is the amount that we needed to loop back. And that's how I load balance 2 off of a train. Now with the copper sheets, I only need 10. So 232 and 10, they don't have a whole lot in common. So the best I'd be able to do would be 5/116. If I had to, I absolutely would. But to get to 10 with a smart splitter is really easy, so I'm just going to go that route with these ones. Because 232 on a 270 line is just about 86% full, I wanted to see if I needed to do that split belt trick or not, or if the buffer in the smart splitter was going to be enough to give me that consistent 60. And so far, it seems to be working. Down to 222 now on here, and I've got 10 over here. So when I'm ready to turn on the factory, I'm going to delete this belt and get it sent in. But for now, we can just continue to let this run, and I can make sure that this is still reading 10 and that's still reading 60. Those should both be really easy to nail. This one is just going to bounce up and down by 1 or 2. And I went ahead and labeled everything. And as you can see, this may give away what the next thing is going to be, but eventually there will be a 4th item coming over here by train. And that new item and the heavy modular frames are just going to be stored in my little storage blueprint here on the top floor. So I figured this one will be able to plug in this way, and then in the future there will be another machine here and it can plug in this way. I really don't think I need more than the small storage container for the heavy modular frames, because if you look at what they're used for now, it's not nearly as many things as what it was in the past. Pre 1.0, there were a number of things that used heavy modular frames that just don't anymore. And I think trains was the major one. And I'm still going to need them. And there's certain projects that'll use way more heavy modular frames than not. But I am pretty sure that I'm going to be able to get away with just having a small storage container. I need to create a bus taking the versatile framework from there to there. And then for the rest of the factory, it's pretty much just getting everything connected to power and then the good old decoration time. The save is currently at 155 hours and 30 minutes. Let's check back in a second and see where we're at. And we're back. Just under 3 hours. The save's at 158 and 16 minutes. So let's take a little tour. Like usual, we'll start with the outposts. With the limestone, not much has changed. The one thing that I did do is that I noticed that the arm, it does sway sideways a little bit too much, and it would clip right through the middle of the frame walls. And I just wasn't crazy about that. So now I just have the frame walls on just the top half all the way around, and then the bottom half is open because it's either a belt coming through or the arms that are moving. I actually really like the way my little limestone hut has turned out. Moving on to the HMF and ACU Factory. It's gonna be a pain when I add a third item. Gonna have to move all those signs around. That's obviously a future move problem. So with these, I just added the large billboards because they are, well, very large. So they're 2 foundations wide and 2 foundations tall because they're half as tall as they are wide. And I used that as basically the background so you can easily see all the items just going up the lifts. These are obviously little blueprints I made. So to build these things, it's pretty easy. It can just be a little bit tricky because some of the things are a little finicky. So I have a concrete pillar right there. And then if I just attach this, I can just nudge it into the right spot. And now I've got a big frame pillar, which just kind of adds those extra corner caps and a little bit extra on the edges. Although there's a little bit more Z fighting that I wanted. But we're just going to pretend that's not there. And then to add this piece, it's basically the small version of this clipped inside of it. So you've got to grab the small concrete pillar, and if I lock that in place, we can nudge it 2 times, and now instead of a rectangle, I just have a little cube. And then same thing with the small frame pillar, I just need to nudge it in place, and then I get the same pattern around all the corners. But just make sure that you paint it before you place the pillar, because now that that's there, I can't. And then you can nudge that back into place. And then I just either used a 1 meter square sign or the 2 meter square sign on all of the corners. But those just kind of helped add a little bit of depth down here where I had some kind of big gaps in between the floors. And I could add some more lights. Now right up here at the top, I just added the tilted walls and then just put some small billboards up there. Originally I was thinking of using the wall mounted floodlights, but unless you place these on a horizontal wall, if you place them up here, if you scroll them up all the way, it's pretty much gonna go just straight down. And I guess that could have worked in a couple spots, but I thought it might look a little bit weird, so I just went with the signs instead. To frame the windows, I decided to use H-beams, mainly because I just wanted to switch it up because I just tend to always use the painted beams. They're just so easy to work with and they cover a good amount of area. And those probably would have made a little bit more sense. I do like the H-beam. When you go to place these, it splits it just right on the seam. And that's really the goal, is just to kind of help separate the 2 materials and colors. The only part that got tricky was up here, and this is probably the reason I should have used painted beams instead. I had to tilt these at a weird angle, because if I had these at the normal angle I was using everywhere else, they were going to clip through the top, and that just looks really funny. So these ones ended up having to be slanted, and it just looks a little funny when you look close. Far away you can't really tell, but up close it got a little bit weirder. And then at certain angles you still kind of see the red just like behind the beam, and I really haven't decided if I like it or don't like it. So I guess I'm kind of neutral on that. So I try to make this a lot of windows, and in most of the spots there's just one wall basically between the edge and then where the windows start. But there were a couple spots where it just seemed better to place 2. So to fill in that gap, I used more of the large billboards. And if you look really closely, the dots are actually really slowly moving. So it's just another one of those fun backgrounds. I like this one, although once you start getting a certain distance, it's really even hard to tell. But with these, I decided to use the new shelf beams because if you can find the right places for them, they just look really cool. And here we have the entrance on the bottom floor. So right down here is just the miners, and that's it. So I probably could do a little bit more to spice up this floor, but it's just got the light control panel for this entry light, and then that's it. We can come in here and let's head on up to the next floor. So for the first few floors, the elevator exits right into the factory, even though the elevator's on the outside. And we've got all of our load balancing here. And then I went ahead and added the throughput counters basically in as many spots as I could. And this way I can easily check my load balancing and make sure that I'm getting the right numbers going to where they're supposed to be going. Now that I've got plenty of plastic, I can use tons of coated concrete wherever I feel like it. So don't be too surprised if we see more coated concrete in factories over the regular concrete. And now we have the heavy modular frame floor. This floor really didn't change much at all. I just added the throughput monitor right there just so we can make sure that we're getting the 3. And then the top floor is the only one where, because I decided to bring in the factory a little bit, the elevator exits just outside. And then here we have the top floor. So I decided, since I didn't need all of that extra space just for the assembler, gave it just enough space, and then we ramped it up a little bit higher for the manufacturer and the good old sink. Again, went with pretty minimalistic catwalks that will go around the factory, but you can get to where you need to be, and that should make just about everything pretty accessible. It's time to watch this thing come to life. So the way the startup process is going to go, I'm going to connect these two, and that's going to get the limestone going, because it has a little bit farther to go than the iron, and the iron is going to manufacture pretty quickly. So that's step 1. Step 2 is go over to the train and connect the plastic and the computer and let that load balancing kick in, and eventually they will start coming out through here. So they've got quite the journey to go on, and so we're going to get those started a little bit earlier. Then I'm going to run into the factory and turn on the iron. And then last but not least, I need to connect a belt over there to send the 5 versatile framework over. And so here we go. Forgot to show this off, but this is the real simple load balancing to take it from 6 down to 5. There they are. The first heavy modular frames of the save. Ah, that feels good. I remember the very first time I made these. Oh, what a nightmare. And now, they're really not so bad. That's 1 down, 99 to go. First of many adaptive control units. Well, it didn't even stutter, instantly at 100%, even on its second cycle. So that means the heavy modular frames must be up at 100%, so we like to see that. Now, these guys right here are actually the last part that I need for this phase. I do have 1 or 2 things to take care of while these work away, but I don't think that's going to take another 98 minutes to do. So instead of having to wait around, I'm pretty sure I have the power. Guess I could double check. But I can cut this time in half by just adding 4 Summers loop. And if we take a look at the power grid, yeah, we got plenty of room. So it's definitely worth it for now. I'm only going to leave the summer sloops in there until I get the 100. And then when I come back to grab those and complete the phase, I'm just going to go ahead and pull those out of there. So far, so good. Everything seems to be staying on at 100%. I want to give this some time to let it run and make sure that no issues pop up. And so in the meantime, while I wait for that, and while I wait for my 100 ACUs to build up, I'm going to take my train back to my hub, because I feel like that area is a fitting place for the space elevator. Home sweet home. Originally I was thinking I have this huge body of water and I'm probably not going to fill it up with a whole bunch of water extractors. But unless I want to move that belt, I just don't really see a good spot. I mean, I could probably put it right here and that would probably fit decent. And then I thought maybe there's a couple of these pillars that I could put it on, but the space elevator is pretty big and so none of these are quite big enough. It would look a little bit funny. I would have to delete the trees to put it right in the middle of my roundabout here. So instead, I'm going to place it right in the middle of the factory. I'm going to go ahead and center it with this right here because even though things got a little bit weird and it's not the actual dead center of the factory, it's close enough. So this thing is pretty huge. I went back and forth on which way it should face because there is a little terminal and then the inputs are kind of in the back. So my thinking is might as well have the terminal facing the factory because I'm going to add like my doors or whatnot here because I want to be able to get out here instead of just jumping out of a train or out of the 3rd floor window. So I think it makes sense to have the terminal facing this way. I've seen that animation so many times, and it just doesn't get old. And not just the animation, they nailed the sounds. They just did a great job with this space elevator. But a whole bunch of this factory is Swatch 18, so let's go ahead and make the space elevator that cool blue also. Alright, so now I've got a space elevator, and like I said, I think I'll put a door basically in that spot on either side. And instead of it being right there, because the walls stick out just ever so slightly from the foundation, I'm going to nudge these back 1 meter. So now I can get in here, but just being able to get to right here isn't quite good enough because now I still have to get all the way around here to get to the actual train station because I've blocked this off. So normally this is where I would enter. So I want to add a shortcut because I love shortcuts. So I'm thinking I add a hypertube hole just like right here. And then I can just run a hypertube from here to there. And sure, it's not that far, but it's also nice being able to just walk into the hypertube and then boom, you're right at the space elevator. I came up here so that I could empty my pockets of basically everything on me. So I've got plenty of space to hold all of my space elevator parts. So if my math is correct, I should be able to hold all of this in this amount of space. So let's go downstairs and look at that space elevator, and then I'll hop on my train and go pick up some space elevator parts. Alright, so we just come down here. I tried to make a flashier sign, but because I decided to make this a concrete pillar right here, if I want to put the small billboard so that I could have much bigger text or something like here, it just clips partially into there, and if I nudge it the meter over, then it overlaps with the window, and then that starts to look weird, and so I just kept it really plain. And here we are. I gave it a little bit of a border by just adding another 2 meters on top of it, just to kind of go all the way around the edges. This is the area that I was working with, these 7 foundations right here. And then on the outside, I just added the 1/2 meter foundation, and then that way, when you come to the corners, you can just use the outer corner extension, and then it gives you that nice rounded edge. And that way I didn't have to clip into this rock. And you know what? I think it accents the very front of the factory pretty well. I really wasn't sure where I was going to put the space elevator when I deleted it. I just knew the first place I put it wasn't its permanent spot. But I'm really happy it works out so well here. It just made sense to add it to this kind of hub home area that's making all the odds and ends. And now because of this guy, I can find it from anywhere on the map. I went ahead and added a second radar tower over here. It's right next to another one of my power towers. And that way I've got pretty good coverage of this whole area. I'll eventually add a whole bunch more radar towers, but for now that's pretty good. And we can remove all of those so we can just see just the buildings. And it is really cool being able to see the train on the lines. Oh, that's neat. Alright, so I'm right here. I'm going to go ahead and take my train and park it over here because I have my own personal train station here. 2 of the space elevator parts are over here, and then the last one is the modular engines. Now, the only downside to the modular engines is it only has that one train station, and that train just kind of sits there most of the time. So I don't actually have a place to park my own train there. Now, obviously, I could just take a train over there and then delete it and then replace another one. But I'm not in that big of a rush. So I think I'm just going to take my train here, and then if we zoom in, oh, we can see them. And if we zoom in, we can see all my power towers. So I'll take my train over to here, and then I'll be able to just take my zip line all the way over to my modular engines. And then I can grab those and just take my zip line back. I have a feeling I'll still be waiting a little bit on the adaptive control units. Let's go for another little train ride. Figure I'll just start with the farthest one and then work my way back. Back to the Modular Frames factory. Just like I was just here. Ah, plenty. Perfect. So we can go ahead and delete this. Don't actually need that one or that one. Not going to make you guys watch, but I'm just going to upgrade this real quick. And I'm going to throw a merger down in here. And now I'm going to get rid of all of these extra parts that I was just using to fill up that space. I've got what I need here. And then I'll obviously just clean this up and I'll see you at the next factory. Another one of my really early factories. This one is doing my steel beams and the versatile framework. And now I can just delete these. And let's go check out the new factory. Might as well go floor by floor and check on all my load balancing. Yep, all the numbers are looking good. Just what I wanted to see. This floor is working like a charm. And the only throughput monitor on this floor is reading exactly what it should be. Beautiful. So far, everything's at 100%. To a minute, that's a good sign. And yep, this one is at 100%. Just waiting on the last 3. Well, there's 2. Just waiting on the last 1. There we are. I don't really know why I did this with the concrete, to be honest, because I kind of knew I was going to be waiting for these, so this was completely pointless. Every other time I did it, it made sense. This one just didn't at all. Ah, you live and you learn. But now I can do the same thing and just add a merger and sink all of it. It was either going to sink here or at the concrete factory, so it doesn't really make too much of a difference. I'm going to clean up this mess, and then I'm going to jump in my train and head back home. And then we can finally complete phase 3. I've made it back to my home/hub. I've got an inventory full of space elevator parts. Let's take this hypertube and finish this off. You know, I'm starting to think Fixit just wanted me to feel really small just right from the get-go. And they did a pretty good job. Alright, let's turn this in. Uh-oh. I actually knew that I needed 50 stacks of these, and one of the industrial storage containers would only hold 48. So early on I ran over there, grabbed 2 stacks, threw them in my dimensional depot, and I've had them waiting for this. There we go. Oh goody, it's infomercial time. It is so loud. I really wish I could turn that down, because I know I cut it out every single time. Oh, all the space elevator animations are just so good. I actually really like when it's a cloudy day. That's great. And that is going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for being here. Before I move on to phase 4, I'm going to spend a little time cleaning up a few things around the world, and I'll share the save on my Google Drive as well. The next video will be a shorter one. I think it's a good time to do a world tour now that I'm recording in 1440p. So look forward to that, and thanks for watching.